Hey guys, before today's episode, just letting you guys know you can support me directly on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/GoLocoPod, where you can support me for as little as just $1 a month. Every patron helps this show, and I hope to continue to create more episodes for you guys in the future. Now, let's get into it. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the GoLoco Podcast, where we try to find sanity in our insane world. I'm your host, Jovin, and I would like to thank you listeners who support this podcast every time a new episode comes out. And for those who are new, welcome aboard. Now, I originally planned to have this episode out around Valentine's Day, but as life goes, I became busy, but here we are. I have decided to share with you guys a little bit of my love life. But I didn't want to do the normal explain, oh, what happened when I met this person, or oh, this quirky love story that I had. But rather, I'd like to just tell you guys what I've learned and how I've changed through the years due to lessons I have learned about love. Now, this is not a guide on how to love. This is not a how to get someone to fall in love with you or anything like that. Rather, these are just 5 things that I have personally learned along the way that I feel that I would like to share with you guys. If some of you guys find wisdom or knowledge in this episode, that's amazing. But again, I must reiterate, I am not an expert on love, relationships, or anything of the like. I'm just detailing my experiences and what I've learned. So, I'm going to tell you guys about 5 lessons I have learned about love. Lesson 1: Self-care and self-love. As the great RuPaul has said many times, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Before we can touch on topics on love and relationships, I feel this lesson may be the most important, as it's a lesson most of us have to continually learn throughout our lives. In a world where the insane pressures from our parents, our friends, our peers, society, coworkers, and most of all ourselves, it may be hard to find time to just take care of ourselves. When I was much younger, I didn't feel like I was worth taking care of, like just myself. I didn't try to dress up well or at all. Really, I would just wear standard t-shirt, basketball shorts all day. While I did shower every day, it seemed more of a chore, and it wasn't something I really put effort into. It was just something like, oh, I have to go shower now. Exercising didn't really feel great. I never really liked to exercise when I was younger. I'd really rather just eat cups of ice cream or watching gameplay videos on YouTube. I mean, who doesn't at that age? I was just a mess, and it wasn't until around late high school that I realized I needed to start changing that. First, it was getting stuff simple, like getting a decent haircut. Then it was putting more thought into what I wore. It was next figuring out good hygiene habits, especially in college, and especially in the past year or two. I've definitely started to go into the gym and try to make a better version of myself physically and trying to get in better shape. However, the other side of all this is, of course, you need to learn to love yourself. And that's something I struggle a lot with at times. I mean, life can really suck. Like, things don't go your way a lot of the time. And we can be our own toughest critics. And now there's there's like a fine line between seeing your own flaws and improving upon them and starting to hate yourself and lash out in toxic ways on yourself and the people around you. And for me personally, I found that cutting out a lot of the toxic people in my life who are putting me down, who are not making me feel great, and surrounding myself with people who actually love and support me helped me get on the right track of learning to love myself and just trying to be a better person. All that self care and attention to myself really helped me learn things that I didn't know were so great about myself. I thought that I didn't think were possible. Now, of course, if you feel like you're suffering something like from severe depression, anxiety, or anything of the sort, seek professional help. Trying to tough it out is not going to help you at all in the short term and the long term. And for this lesson and this journey of loving yourself, it isn't a short one. This is a lifelong journey where we must all learn to love ourselves each and every day, little by little. We all have different journeys with different peaks and valleys. And in my opinion, this lesson of taking care of yourself and learning to love yourself is the most important lesson of all, really. Just not about love, just in general, because it's for each and every one of us. And if we want to learn to love others, we have to first learn to feel comfortable and feel loving and be in love with ourselves. Now, lesson 2. Don't expect anything in return. Now, this is the mentality of so many quote unquote nice guys, though I don't think gender or sex or anything like that play really a part in this mentality necessarily. What I mean is, don't expect anything in return is that if you're nice to someone that you might be crushing on, that you may like, don't expect them to reciprocate anything in return. Like, don't expect them to want to go out on a date with you or be in love with you. No. When I was younger, I definitely felt myself and many of the other guys around my age group, probably around late middle school, early high school. We all had this, even in the back of our heads, this mentality in our head, but that was just because we didn't understand. And I was completely awkward around people, not just girls, but just people in general. And with the sudden influx of hormones from puberty dictating on, oh my god, now I'm starting to like people and I don't know what to do, and maybe they don't like me back, and it was just a mess. And while myself, I never called out anyone like the many people you can find on r/nice guys on Reddit. That is a doozy of a subreddit. But getting on track, that mentality of maybe if I do nice things, this person that I like will begin to like me, was in the back of my mind way when I was way younger. And around this time, I think the phrase nice guys finish last, that mentality was at its peak. And being the naive and easily impressionable teenager I was like a victim of this toxic way of thinking. And throughout the years, specifically around late high school, maybe a little early college, I realized, dude, this mentality is not healthy for me, for the people I'm liking. It's just not a good way to think. It's so toxic. There was never like a eureka moment of clarity for me, or someone giving an intervention and showing me how I was wrong. It was more just me learning to talk to people and to girls just naturally, and becoming friends and meeting new people and just maturing and realizing the way that I was thinking was completely and utterly wrong. And if I were to be rejected, instead of weighing me down, it would feel like a chance to move on and be a better person, instead of being sorrow like, oh, why didn't she like me back? I did this and I did that. It's just, that's, if you are, especially if you're a young guy or even a young girl and you have this mentality, it's not healthy. It's very toxic, and you need to realize that everyone else is their own person and they don't have to bend down to your will or anything like that. Everyone's just different, and maybe they'll like you, maybe they don't. That's just life. So I'll end this second lesson with, no one owes you anything. You owe it to yourself to realize that. On to lesson number 3. Find someone who matches your pace. So you may be thinking, what do I mean by matching pace? Well, I can try to explain it like this. Let's say you and the person you're liking, dating, or whatever, you guys are on like a track and field, right? And the track represents your relationship. So when you start dating, we can represent that by both of you starting to run on the track. And in this metaphor, when I was dating when I was younger and I started dating, I would have been that person who would like sprint at the start. And anyone who knows anything about running long distances, you never want to sprint. Now, for me, I learned this lesson when I was with this girl at the time, and she decided that we should probably break off and should just be friends. And because we weren't on the same page in the relationship, because she felt that I was trying to rush things maybe a little too much, and she was trying to keep it more casual. And in this sense, contextualizing this back to the metaphor, when we both started on the track, I probably sprinted right away, while she was just going at her own pace. And when she realized that I wasn't going to stop and try to match her pace, she decided that she was just gonna get off the track, and that was the end of that. And of course, no hard feelings. Things don't work out. But after that, I realized that just in general, I was going too fast. In dating and in relationships, and the people I dated afterwards, I was always try to match their pace. And what I mean for me, matching pace, it doesn't necessarily mean slowing down or speeding up to the point where you're not comfortable in the relationship and you're unhappy, but rather it means that both partners consensually agree to be on this pace in the relationship where you're running basically side by side and matching each other's speed on the track. And of course, there will be times when you or your partner may be going a little faster or a little slower than the other for one reason or another. But as long as you guys both realize that you guys can try to match your pace again and realize why one is going a little faster, one is going a little slower, and realizing maybe one person needs to speed up a little bit, or maybe the person who's ahead and wants to slow down, so you guys can match pace and be on the same page. As long as you guys can talk that out and communicate well, you're gonna be on track with your relationship, and you're gonna have a really long relationship, a really healthy one. Lesson 4: be confident, but don't be an asshole. Now, there's a fine line, I feel, between being confident and being an asshole. For me, being confident, I'm a straight male. So being confident in knowing what you want when you're talking with a girl and communicating with her in a respectful manner. An asshole would just come up to someone, harass them, bother them, try to manipulate them into what they want, what the asshole wants, and then curse them out when they inevitably get rejected and be like, she sucks, and just start mouthing bad things about that person. That's an asshole. Now, for me, confidence is something that I really struggled with through middle and high school, and once I entered college, I decided to try the fake it until you make it strategy. Now, lesson 1 about self-care and self-love, that definitely helped me out for this particular lesson in confidence. But getting experience just in general with talking to women and going on dates helped raise my confidence more. For any young guys out there specifically struggling with confidence, even young girls, just what I learned is that when you go meet someone for the first time that you may be interested in, I suggest just be yourself, because if you're not yourself, you're never going to have a truthful encounter with someone, and it's never going to go well in the long term. Try to find common interests, and once you do, strike up conversations surrounding those common interests specifically, and see if there's any chemistry. Are you guys telling jokes? How's the flirting going? Is the conversation going for a long time? It seems like it can go on forever. Or is it, obviously, maybe it's going stop and go? If it's like that, maybe you need to find different interests to talk about, or maybe it's just not meant to be. But if the conversation feels like it's going on forever, you feel chemistry, your jokes are landing, you're laughing at her jokes or his jokes, this is where I say you could ask them out. Obviously, so in this situation, by the way, just letting you know, not an expert, just letting you know, this is just from one guy's experience. But for me, what I would do back in the day is I would wait for a break in the conversation, just where it's like a natural thing where whatever you guys were talking about, you guys are starting to wind down, and before you can go on to the next part of a conversation, just say something like this and go like up to them and say, "Hey, I think you're really cool, and I'd like to talk more with you over coffee if you'd be interested." Simple. Gets a point across that you think they're cool, you think they're really interesting, but you'd want to talk with them more in a setting more controlled for both of you, like a coffee, which obviously is like a date. And make sure when you ask them this, make it obvious that it is a date. Don't try to think, oh, we're just hanging out, when your intentions are this is a date. Make it from the beginning so they aren't blindsided later on when they realize, oh, I thought we were just hanging out. No, let them know early on, I'm interested in you, I want to get to know you more, and I'm asking you out on a date. Again, if she rejects you or she's not interested as much as you thought, that's okay. As we stated earlier, they don't owe you anything. However, if they do say yes, ask for their number, and you guys can hash out details over text or calls, and obviously go from there. This is simple, and with practice, practice in the mirror, practice obviously when you actually go out and meet people, your confidence in these situations will skyrocket. Don't be discouraged if she rejects you, even if you thought they showed the same amount of enthusiasm in the conversation. Just remember, there's always so many people who are going to be just as interested in you as you are with them, as long as you're being true to yourself and being confident about it. Don't give up, and don't be an ass. Now, the last lesson I'll leave you guys off with today, lesson 5. Learn love languages. Now, this is one of the more recent lessons that I have personally learned. For those who are listening and don't know what the 5 love languages are, I'll list them out for you right now. They are physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving, and quality time. Now, today, I'm not going to go too in depth with all 5 of these. I'm really going to focus on just 2. If you guys are interested in a podcast episode, maybe just on love languages, I can do that. But for right now, I'm just gonna be detailing my experience. So for me, this lesson is gonna be surrounding me and my girlfriend. So my current girlfriend right now. So for me, physical touch is my number 1 love language. I mean, I just love to give and receive hugs, kisses. I love holding hands. I love to cuddle, all of the sort. Now, for my girlfriend, her love language is quality time, which means when we're together, she wants to make sure there are no distractions on either side and that we focus on our time on each other and be in the moment. Now, for a certain period of time, we felt we were disconnected on that front. We felt that we weren't loving each other as much as we were, but in reality, it was just that we weren't connecting on our love languages because obviously our natural love languages are different. So for me, I felt that I was giving a lot more love to her than she was to me because I was giving her hugs, trying to give her kisses, hold hands, and because that wasn't her natural love language, I felt I wasn't receiving much love. And obviously on her side, she wants to have quality time, but I had a habit of maybe checking my phone a little too often when we're on dates or getting distracted by people and by TV. And she felt that I wasn't giving her any of the attention and love that she thought she wanted because she was thinking about quality time and being in the moment. So we were really disconnected on that front. Now, she had really known about love languages to an extent, but for me, it was actually listening to another podcast. I don't remember which one, but they were discussing love languages, and it clicked in my head that I wasn't giving. It's not that we weren't giving the same amount of love to each other. It's just that we were not communicating our love because our love languages were different. So once I discussed this with her, we were able to figure out compromises and figuring out how to communicate better. So for her, now she's obviously more willing and giving to give hugs when I'm feeling down, or receiving, or just holding hands, because she knows that's how I feel love and that's how I'll give love. And now she's more accepting and more naturally accustomed to that. And now when we go on dates, I make sure I'm not on my phone, making sure I'm always talking to her, being in the moment with her, because now I'm giving her quality time and now she's feeling loved. And ever since that point, our relationship has improved dramatically. It was already at a good place, but we felt maybe we were starting to dip, or maybe we were plateauing, but now it feels like we're on another level. Like, we communicate with each other way more. There's way less fighting, way less arguing. And it feels amazing, because now we know, okay, we do love each other. It was just we weren't understanding our love languages, and now that we are, it's like it's a whole different ball game, if for lack of a better term. And I find myself more and more in love with this woman after each second that passes, and there's really no one in this world I'd rather be with right now. So that's it. Those are the 5 lessons I've learned about love in my life. Obviously, these are technically not the only ones that I've learned, but I felt in my experience, these are some of the most important lessons of love for me personally. So, if you're listening out there, are there any lessons that maybe you've learned about love that you feel are important? If you're on YouTube, let me know in those comments down below. And if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, somewhere like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or elsewhere, you can go down to my Instagram right now at the GoLoco Podcast. If you're listening on the same day this is released, there is a question on my story asking what lessons have you learned in love, and you can submit your answers there. And I will try to repost that for each day for the rest of this week of this podcast being released, so you guys can interact there. If you would be so inclined, if you enjoyed this episode of the GoLoco Podcast, if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the like, follow the podcast and share this episode with your friends, family. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment on this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video of the GoLoco Podcast. Thank you all so much if you've made it this far, and I hope to keep creating amazing podcast episodes for all of you. Now, until next time, wherever and whenever you are, have a fantastic day.